The NBA draft is one of the most exciting times of the year for basketball fans. It's the ultimate representation of hope. If your team makes the correct pick, it can set itself up for years of success. If you blow it, well, there's always next year. Today, I'm going through the last 77 years of NBA drafts to rank every 7th pick in draft history. Now, there are a few caveats before jumping in. One, this is only ranking a player's pro career. I do not care about how good they were in college, but I will consider if they played overseas or for a different domestic league. And two, we don't have much data on some of the more recent players, but outside of the 2025 class, which as of this recording has not been selected, I'm still going to rank them. Just don't be surprised if some of these guys shoot up the rankings in the next few years. Finally, in the early years of the NBA, there was a rule where teams could select territorial players, throwing off the draft number slightly. I'm going with what Basketball Reference has listed, so if you have any issues with players being on this list, take it up with them. That all said, let's get into the ranking. 78, Jack Underman, 1947. 5 guys on this list never played in the NBA, but I'm going to start with Underman. He made 2 All-Big 9 teams for Ohio State, but decided to become an oral surgeon instead of playing pro ball, which in the 1940s was probably the right choice. 77, Bill Stauffer, 1952. Stauffer was a 2-time All-Big 7 player for the Missouri Tigers before the Celtics drafted him. He decided to head to the Air Force instead and jumped into a journalism career after finishing up his military service. 76, Al Bunge, 1960. Bunge was only a 1-time All-ACC player, but he averaged a double-double for Maryland. He wanted to play in the NBA, but he also wanted the Warriors to pay his health insurance, which he needed to treat the ulcerative colitis he'd been dealing with since his freshman year of high school. The team wouldn't agree to that, and he decided to play AAU ball to get insurance and a better paying job. 75, Bob Gale, 1948. Gale was a 1-time All-American with Dartmouth before the St. Louis Bombers picked him in 48. Instead of playing pro ball, he spent a few years barnstorming before moving into a business career. 74, Irwin Dambrot, 1950. Dambrot was coming off of winning an NCAA title, an NIT title, and picking up the NCAA Tournament Most Outstanding Player Award with CCNY. However, he was implicated in the 1951 point shaving scandal and was banned from the NBA for life. 73, George Bon Salle, 1957. First of all, apologies for any mispronunciation. I couldn't find a good source. Bon Salle decided to forego the NBA and play overseas for a few seasons. He eventually joined the Chicago Packers for the 1962 season, playing in 3 games and retiring soon after. 72, Barry Kramer, 1964. Kramer wasn't terrible during his lone season in the NBA, averaging 3.6 points as a bench player, but he left the league in '66 to play overseas. He played in the ABA for a season in 1970, and then embarked on a long career as an attorney and judge. 71, Jim Neal, 1953. Neal averaged nearly 5 points and 4 rebounds during his rookie season with the Nats. He joined Baltimore in 55, but his numbers dropped off and he was out of the league after the season. 70, Ernie Barrett, 1951. Barrett spent 2 seasons with Boston and had a solid second season with 7 points, 3.4 rebounds, and 2.4 assists over 72 games. However, he was out of the league after the season and never returned to the game. 69, Ron Livingstone, 1949. Livingstone played in 16 games with the Bullets before being traded to Philly. He averaged 9.6 points during his first season with the team. He did a second season in Philly before he was out of the NBA entirely. 68, Donovan Clingan, 2024. The 7'2" Clingan will almost certainly fly up the list over the next few years. That said, with just a year under his belt, it's tough to rank him much higher. 67, Bobby Hurley, 1993. To be fair to Hurley, he was actually playing pretty well during the first 19 games of his rookie season with 7 points and 6 assists a night. However, he was involved in a car accident and suffered life-threatening injuries. While he came back to play 4 more seasons, he was never able to recapture the game that made him a top pick in 93. 66, Tom Marshall, 1954. Marshall averaged 8 points, 3.6 rebounds, and 1.5 assists as a rookie. He was drafted into the Army and missed the 56 season. Unfortunately, even though he was back in 57, his numbers would never make it back to their previous highs, and the 6'4 guard didn't play in more than 40 games over the next 3 seasons. He retired in 59 and spent a year coaching before leaving the game behind. 65, Bob Portman, 1969. Portman's Warriors career started well enough, averaging over 7 points and 4 rebounds during his first 2 seasons. However, his numbers fell off when Cazzie Russell joined the team in 72. Portman played one last season, retiring after 1973. 64, Charlie Paulk, 1968. Paulk had a ho-hum rookie season and served a year in the Army before joining Cincinnati in 1971. He averaged 9.2 points and 4.7 rebounds that year. However, he was traded to Chicago in the offseason and was then traded to New York later that year. Paulk retired after the 72 season and became a band promoter. 63, Tom Hoover, 1963. Hoover only played 5 seasons between the NBA and ABA, but played for 5 different teams. That included averaging 11 points and 10.3 rebounds in 40 games to end his ABA career in 1969. Hoover was often seen as an enforcer during his career, but the guy could really play. In addition to his NBA and ABA play, Hoover won 2 EPBL titles in 66 and 67. He retired after the 1970 season and jumped into a career as a road manager for entertainers like Richard Pryor. 62, Bismack Biyombo, 2011. To his credit, Biyombo has been in the NBA for 14 years. You don't have that long of a career if you don't have some real skill. That said, he's averaging 5 points and 6 boards across his career. He's a solid bench big man and never progressed much beyond that. If the Kings had picked him in the 20s, he'd be a great pick. Instead, we remember him as the guy who was picked before Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, and Jimmy Butler. Not great. 61, Tim Perry, 1988. Perry had one good year in 1992 with 12.3 points and 6.9 rebounds a night for Phoenix. Then he was traded to the 76ers and never regained his form. Like Biyombo, he's not a bad player, just not nearly good enough to become an everyday starter. After leaving the NBA in 96, he spent several years playing in Spain. He also holds the distinction of being one of 3 guys to dunk on Shaquille O'Neal, at least according to Shaq himself, who is always a questionable source. 60, Eddie Griffin, 2001. Griffin's career got off to a solid start in Houston, averaging 9 points and 6 boards while playing solid minutes. However, off-court demons quickly caught up with him, causing him to miss the entire 2004 season in rehab. He came back and played for 3 years in Minnesota, but slowly regressed. Sadly, he passed away in a car accident in 2007 at just 24 years old. He was on the verge of making a move overseas to try and get his young career back on track. 59, Pat Riley, 1967. I want to be very careful with Riley's rankings and not include his coaching and executive career. There, he's a bona fide legend. As a player, he was solid but not spectacular. Playing solid bench minutes across his career, Riley won a title with the Lakers in 72 and averaged 11 points in 1975, his penultimate season. He retired in 76 and quickly became one of the best coaches and executives in the history of the game. 58, Chris Mim, 2000. Mim's career numbers aren't phenomenal, but he was one of those prototypical backup bigs that teams had to use quite a bit in the aughts. He did have a few good seasons with the Lakers once Shaq left, averaging around 10 points and 6 rebounds. Then he got hurt and his career was essentially over. 57, Bud Stallworth, 1972. Stallworth finished in 5th in Rookie of the Year voting in '73 with 6.3 points a night. He had a few solid seasons, averaging nearly double-digit points with the New Orleans Jazz in the mid-'70s, but that expansion team wasn't very good. Unfortunately, he had to retire after 5 seasons due to a back injury sustained in a car accident. Ron Sobey, 1956. Sobey averaged 11.5 points during his second season. That was as good as it got for the guard, as a knee injury hurt his production and eventually caused him to retire after only 4 seasons. 55, Killian Hayes, 2020. Hayes is only 23 years old, so he's definitely a candidate to move up this list if he develops. And to his credit, Hayes averaged double-digit points for the Pistons in 2023. However, he's struggled to get on the court since, spending most of 2025 in the G League. 54, Cliff Mealy, 1971. Again, apologies for any mispronunciation. I couldn't find any video references for several of these older players. Mealy got off to a hot start, dropping 9.9 points and 6.6 boards as a rookie. The forwards numbers hovered around there for his first few years in Houston, before recurrent back injuries started to plague him. He only lasted 5 seasons in the NBA, but did spend a few years playing overseas before stepping away in '81. 53, Bilal Coulibaly, 2023. Coulibaly will absolutely move up this list barring injury. In 2 seasons with the Wizards, he's bumped his scoring from 8.4 to 12.3 and continues to show top-end defensive potential. Granted, he's playing for the Wizards in 2025, so somebody has to score there, but Coulibaly should continue to develop into a solid wing. He really just needs his 3-point shooting to come around. 52, Lorenzen Wright, 1996. We have quite a few guys in this range that were solid bigs who never quite broke out, and Wright is definitely one of them. During the middle of his career, he was a nightly double-double threat in Memphis, but outside of those 3 years, he was mostly disappointing. And even more sadly, he was murdered soon after retiring. 51, Jerry Chambers, 1966. Chambers was a dynamic talent in college at Utah, dropping 29 points and 12 boards a night as a senior. However, that production did never quite translate, partially because Chambers missed his 2nd and 3rd years serving in the military. He was never bad, but his scoring peaked at 12 a night, and he struggled with injuries in the back half of his career, which lasted only 6 seasons. 50, Ben McLemore, 2013. McLemore was drafted to be a high-scoring guard, and he largely did that during his first few years with the Kings. He wasn't a lights-out shooter, but he was a solid 4th option behind guys like DeMarcus Cousins, Isaiah Thomas, and Rudy Gay. Starting in 2016, McLemore started missing time with injury, which would become the tale of the rest of his career. Despite moving teams several times, he could never stay healthy and was out of the NBA in 2022 after 9 seasons. 49, Emmanuel Mudiay, 2015. Mudiay skipped college and spent a year playing in China. His time there was marred by injury, but the Nuggets still picked him in the 2015 draft. He averaged 12.8 points and 5.5 assists to make the All-Rookie squad, but that would be the best year of his career, at least so far. He had another solid season in Denver before joining the Knicks. In 2019, he bumped his scoring up to nearly 15 a night, but missed more than 20 games. He then signed with Utah to back up Mike Conley for a season. Mudiay spent the 21 season playing overseas and joined the Kings for 2 games in 2022. He's since been playing overseas and led the Puerto Rican League in scoring in 2024. 48, Luc Longley, 1991. Longley spent 2 underwhelming years with Minnesota before joining the Bulls in '94. He then became the team's starting center during their second three-peat. While never a star, he gave Chicago a solid presence in the middle, using his shooting touch to become a great fourth option for Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen's Bulls. After the Bulls broke up in '98, he spent a few years bopping around until jumping into a coaching career. 47, Corey Brewer, 2007. After starring at Florida in college, big things were expected from Brewer as a versatile wing. He was mostly that over his 13-year career, but not to the level teams hoped. Instead, he was more of a glue guy and a sixth-man contender who could score in bunches at times, but was never consistent enough to take that next step. Partially because of that, Brewer played for 8 teams across his career before retiring in 2020. 46, Ed Conlon, 1955. Conlon quickly established himself as the Nats' second or third option behind the legendary Dolph Schayes. However, the team decided to trade him to the Pistons for future Hall of Famer George Yardley in 1962. He was still solid during his year and a half in Detroit, but had fallen off quite a bit by the time he joined the Philadelphia Warriors in 1961. Of course, part of that drop in stats was due to playing with Wilt Chamberlain, who was averaging 50 points a night during Conlon's last season in 1962, but still. 45, Bob Ferry, 1959. Ferry was traded to the Pistons after his rookie season and quickly became a solid starting center. During his 4 years in Detroit, he averaged 12.3 points and 6.3 boards. However, his numbers took a major hit when he was traded to Baltimore in 1965 and played alongside Walt Bellamy. Ferry's numbers in 5 years with the Bullets were half of what they were in Detroit. He retired after the 1969 season and started a long career as an NBA executive, helping the Bullets win a title in 1978. His son Danny also played in the NBA. 44, Ron Behagen, 1973. Behagen started his NBA career well, averaging 11 points and 7.1 rebounds to finish in second behind Ernie DeGrigio for Rookie of the Year. He was basically the same player during his first 4 seasons, despite a trade to New Orleans in 1975. However, he became a trade piece for several teams in '78, as Behagen played for 7 different teams over the next 3 years before leaving the game behind. Over his 7-year career, he averaged 10.3 points and 7 boards, but the twilight of his career was hampered by injuries and the constant shuffling. 43, Lamond Murray, 1994. Let me be clear, Murray was very good at putting the ball in the bucket. The 6'7" swingman routinely averaged more than 15 points per game during his first 8 years in the league. However, when he played for the Clippers and the Cavs, they were pretty terrible. Somebody had to score, and Murray did a bunch of it when healthy. In 2002, he was traded to Toronto, but missed the '03 season with injury. During the next 3 years with the Raptors and Nets, he was a mediocre bench player. After the '06 season, Murray went overseas to play pro ball through 2012, largely in China. 42, Jonathan Kuminga, 2021. Like Coulibaly, I expect Kuminga to move up this list quickly. The 6'8" big guy has shown that he can score in the NBA, averaging over 15 points a night in the last 2 seasons. He hasn't been quite as efficient since taking on more of a scoring role, but he's only 22. I'm not sure if I see all-star potential from Kuminga, but he's a very good third option at worst. 41, Rich Kelly, 1975. Kelly's career numbers don't look great. 7.6 points and 7 boards across an 11-year career. That said, he had 2 very good seasons in New Orleans in '78 and '77, giving him a slight boost in the rankings. In '78, Kelly averaged 9.3 points and 10.2 rebounds. He upped those to 15.7 and 12.8 in '79 before being traded to the Nets during the next season. Granted, those Jazz teams weren't very good, but it's still more production than most of the guys below him, even if it was relatively brief. 40, Shaedon Sharpe, 2022. I get it, Sharpe plays for the mostly hapless Blazers. Somebody had to score points, so his 18.5 in 2025 isn't as impressive as someone playing on a playoff team. My argument to have him above someone like Kuminga is that he's bumped his scoring each year while keeping his efficiency. Sharpe's probably not going to become an all-NBA player anytime soon, but it does feel like he might be trending toward fringe all-star over the next few years. 39, Randy Foye, 2006. Foye was actually traded twice after draft night, eventually ending up on the Minnesota Timberwolves. The guard made the all-rookie team with 10.1 points and 2.8 assists. During his 3 years in Minnesota, he upped his scoring to 16 points, but was traded to the Wizards ahead of the 2010 season. Foye spent most of the rest of his career jumping between teams, playing big minutes for mediocre squads, giving them solid scoring from deep. He retired after the 2017 season with a career points per game average of 10.3 across 11 years and 7 teams. I'll end with an interesting fact I came across that doesn't really matter for the rankings, but is still pretty cool. Foye was born with a condition that caused his organs to be reversed. I think it happens to like 1 in a million people. 38, Tom Henderson, 1974. Henderson was a bucket from day one in the NBA. He averaged 11.4 points a night as a rookie and didn't dip below double digits until 1980. That said, he never went higher than 14.2, making him a solid third or fourth option, but not much more. Notably, he played in 87 games in 1977 due to the timing of his trade to Washington. With the Bullets, Henderson won a title in 1978. He then joined Houston in 1980, and his scoring dropped quite a bit as he moved into a reserve role. Henderson retired after the 1983 season. 37, Charlie Villanueva, 2005. Villanueva averaged 13 points and 6.4 boards to make the All-Rookie team in 06. However, Toronto traded him to Milwaukee for TJ Ford once the season wrapped up. He continued to play well, peaking at 16.2 points and 6.7 rebounds in 09. That led to a 5-year deal with Detroit, but he was never able to reach those same heights during his 5 seasons with the Pistons. Part of that was due to injuries, but guys like Andre Drummond and Greg Monroe cut into the big man's minutes as well. Villanueva ended his career with 2 seasons in Dallas, retiring after another ho-hum season in 2016. 36, Dave Gamby, 1958. Gamby played in only 2 games as a rookie and was traded to Cincinnati halfway through his second season. At that point, things didn't look great, but his rights were sold to Syracuse in 1961. He instantly became one of the team's top scorers, averaging nearly 15 points and 7.5 rebounds across 2 seasons. In 1964, he joined the 76ers. He played well for a few years, helping Philly win a title in 1967, but lost minutes to the ascension of guys like Billy Cunningham. Gamby played in San Diego in 1968, bringing his scoring back up to 13.4. He played in 2 more seasons, retiring in 1970 with career averages of 10.6 points and 5.2 boards. 35, Wayne Hightower, 1962. Hightower had a weird career. He wanted to leave the University of Kansas a year early due to academic and financial issues. However, NBA rules at the time barred players from joining an NBA team when they still had college eligibility. I won't bore you with the details, but Hightower spent his first season playing for Real Madrid. He led the Spanish League in scoring that season, and the Warriors picked him in the 62 draft. His NBA career was up and down, hovering at around 9 points and 6 rebounds during his 5 years in the league. In 1968, he joined the Denver Rockets in the ABA and bumped his scoring up to 17.3 a night. The next year, Hightower averaged 14 points and 9.6 rebounds to make his only All-Star team. He continued to put up double-digit points over the next 3 years in the ABA and retired after the 1972 season. 34, Ron Brewer, 1978. If you thought Hightower had a weird career, let me introduce you to Ron Brewer. After averaging double-digit points in his first 2 seasons with Portland, Brewer was traded in the middle of every season of his career. My man could still put up buckets in a hurry when healthy, but from 1981 to 1986, he changed teams 6 times, never spending a full season with one team. He retired in 1986, and his son Ronnie also became an NBA player in 2007. 33, Lionel Simmons, 1990. Big things were expected out of L Train after winning the National College Player of the Year in 1990. And to his credit, he played well during his first 4 seasons in Sacramento, averaging around 17 points and 8 boards a night. Simmons finished in second for Rookie of the Year voting, behind Derek Coleman in 91, but chronic injuries started to hit in 95. That forced him to retire in 97, after only 7 seasons in the NBA. 32, Wendell Carter Jr., 2018. Carter Jr. is still pretty young, so don't be surprised if he moves up this list over the next few years. However, it's worth noting that his 2025 season was, statistically, his worst, after averaging double-digit points during his first 6 years. That said, it was the healthiest he's been in his young career, so swings and roundabouts. We know he's capable of averaging a double-double because he did exactly that in 2022. Though the Magic have taken a big jump in quality since then, so it makes sense to see his numbers fall back slightly. Even if he spends the rest of his career as a solid backup big, I'm happy slotting Carter Jr. in here. 31, Kobe White, 2019. Like several of the more recent players on this list, I fully expect White to move up over the next few years. After all, he raised his scoring to 20.4 points a night in 2025 and has consistently shown over the last few years that he can score in bunches. Admittedly, the 2025 Bulls are very bad and, in my opinion, should consider tanking in 2026 to get out of their current spiral of mediocrity. The good news about that might be that White gets a new team where he can actually play for a contender. Either way, White is a solid young player with fringe all-star potential. I just really want him to get out of Chicago. 30, George McLeod, 1989. McLeod's first 4 seasons with the Pacers were pretty mediocre. In fact, when the team released him in 93, he didn't get another contract and headed overseas to play in Italy. In 95, he came back to the NBA with the Mavericks, where he averaged double digits off the bench. The next season, he led the league in 3-point attempts, taking his scoring up to 18.9 a night while starting 63 games. Unfortunately, that would be the peak of his career. McLeod played for 6 more seasons across 4 different teams, mostly playing as a heater off the bench before retiring in 2002. 29, Tim Thomas, 1997. Thomas was quickly traded to the 76ers for Keith Van Horn after the draft. He averaged 11 points to make the All-Rookie team, but had a slight sophomore slump, and Philly traded him to the Bucks. Over 6 seasons in Milwaukee, Thomas became a potent scorer, especially off the bench. He averaged 12.2 points and 4.2 rebounds, peaking at 12.6 in 01 when he finished in second for 6th Man of the Year voting. Many thought he could be even better, with teammate Ray Allen once saying, quote, "If he wanted to, Tim Thomas could be the best player in the league." Unfortunately, he never took that next step and was traded to the Knicks in 2004. That kicked off a long career of jumping between teams. Thomas could still score, but never settled with a franchise, playing for 6 teams over his final 5 seasons. Thomas retired after the 2010 season with career averages of 11.5 points and 4.1 rebounds. 28, Steve Johnson, 1981. Johnson is a strange player to rank. He made 1 All-Star game for Portland in 1988, a season after averaging 16.8 points and 7.2 rebounds to pick up a few MVP votes. However, in his lone All-Star season, he only played in 43 games. To keep it simple, Johnson was mostly a decent NBA player with a few flashes of great play on teams that actually won games. Plus, there aren't many players in the 80s who racked up more fouls than Johnson. My man really knew how to throw his weight around. 27. Quinn Buckner, 1976. Buckner slowly became a double-digit scorer during his 6 years with the Bucks, peaking at 13.3 a night in 1981. However, he was best known for his hard-nosed defense, making the All-Defensive Team 4 times during his days in the Cream City. Ahead of the 83 season, he was traded to the Boston Celtics. QB came off the bench to back up Dennis Johnson and Gerald Henderson, helping Boston win the 1984 title. He spent 2 more seasons with the Celtics before being traded to the Pacers in 1986. QB retired after the season following 10 years of solid production. 26. Jason Williams, 1998. If this list were about showmanship, White Chocolate would be at the top. The point guard made his name with ridiculous passes and mind-bending dribbling. As a rookie, he was a distant second in Rookie of the Year voting behind Vince Carter. He was a double-digit scorer throughout his early career while consistently adding solid assist numbers. His best stretch came in Memphis, where he averaged 11.5 points and 7 assists across 5 years, peaking at 14.8 and 8. In 06, Williams was traded to Miami. He won a title with the Heat that season, starting every playoff game on the road to the championship. After 2 more seasons in Miami, he briefly retired before returning in 2010 to play with Orlando. Williams officially retired after playing 11 games for Memphis in 2011. 25. Kirk Hinrich, 2003. Hinrich spent 13 years in the NBA, mostly with Chicago, and is best described as a floor general. While never an All-Star, Hinrich made 2 All-Defensive teams and got a smattering of votes for DPOY in 05 and 07. He did fall out of the starting lineup briefly when Ben Gordon and Derrick Rose took over in 2009, but Hinrich spent his career serving as a steady hand at the point. He averaged 10.9 points, 4.8 assists, and 1.1 steals across his career. 24. Walt Williams, 1992. Williams could always shoot. He started his career by averaging 17 points, largely off the bench for Sacramento. He kept scoring in the teens throughout the first 8 years of his career, while changing teams several times. Granted, a lot of that scoring was happening on bad teams, but he still put the ball in the bucket, showing off a solid 3-point stroke. He was never the lead guy, but was always a solid second or third option on offense. 23. Roy Tarpley, 1986. In my opinion, Tarpley is nearly impossible to rank. He averaged 12.6 points and 10 boards across his career, making the All-Rookie team and winning 6th Man of the Year in 1988. The big guy was a force when healthy, but he had a well-known drinking problem, which led to an NBA ban in 1991 for violating the league's drug use policy. He spent a few years playing overseas before rejoining the Mavs in 95. He played well in 55 games, but got another DWI and was banned from the league permanently. Tarpley carved out a long career overseas, mostly in Greece. During his European days, he once led the FIBA Sporting Cup in scoring, won the Greek League once, and led the Greek League in rebounding. He officially retired in 2006, after a few years in the USBL and CBA. I might have him ranked too high based on his peak, but it's hard for me to drop a walking double-double much lower, despite the limited games. 22. Mike Gminski, 1980. G-Man came out of the gate hot for the Nets, averaging 13.2 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks as a rookie. Unfortunately, his minutes fell off over the next few seasons as New Jersey brought in other centers. By 1985, he'd worked his way back into the starting lineup and was averaging 12.8 and 7.8. He continued to improve over the next few years, peaking at 16.9 and 10 in 1988. Midway through that season, he was traded to Philly. G-Man started nearly every game of his 4 years in Philly, becoming known as one of the best free throw shooting big men in history. Gminski was traded to Charlotte in the middle of the 91 season and finished his career with 3 more seasons that were cut short by injury, retiring in 94. 21. Lauri Markkanen, 2017. I'd like to see what Markkanen can do on a good team. He's been in the league for 8 years and has never played in the playoffs. That's not ideal, and it has to be said that he regularly misses time with injury, but it's hard to deny that he's become a nightly double-double threat when healthy. His best season so far came during his lone All-Star season in 2023, when he averaged 25.6 points and 8.6 rebounds to win Most Improved Player. The finisher has been rumored for a trade out of Utah for a few years, and here's hoping that he moves to a contender this summer so we can see what he does on a team that actually matters. 20. Nene, 2002. Nene was the first Brazilian player drafted in the first round of the NBA draft. He was quickly traded to the Nuggets, where he spent the first 10 years of his career. Nene made the All-Rookie team in 03, behind 10.5 points and 6.1 rebounds. He had a few injury struggles during his early 20s, but was a solid big body when healthy. His best stretch came from 09 to 2012, averaging about 14 points and 7.5 rebounds, and helping get Denver into the playoffs consistently. Midway through the 2012 season, Nene was traded to Washington. He spent 5 years with the Wizards, giving the team his typical solid big man minutes. He signed with the Rockets in 2016, taking a backup role behind Clint Capella. He missed the 2020 season with injury and retired after a trade to the Hawks. 19. Thomas Sherry, 1961. Sherry averaged double digits in 9 of his 10 NBA careers. In 68 and 69, he averaged a double-double with around 14 points and 10 boards a night. However, his best season came in 1963. That year, Sherry averaged 16 points and 9.8 rebounds for the Warriors to make his only All-Star appearance. Despite spending the first 6 years of his career playing with Wilt Chamberlain and Rick Barry, he didn't actually spend much time in the playoffs. He retired after the 1971 season with career averages of 12.7 points and 8.6 rebounds. Plus, if you say his name fast, it sounds like the classic cartoon Tom and Jerry. 18. Quintin Dailey, 1982. Dailey's NBA career began with off-court distractions, and they never really stopped. Still, Q could get a bucket with the best of them in the 80s, averaging 15.1 points as a rookie and 18.2 in year 2. Then Michael Jordan came to town and immediately took his starting job. Q was annoyed, but averaged 16 points off the bench to get votes for 6th Man of the Year. The next season, those off-court distractions played a part in him missing more than half the season, which led to Chicago dropping him. The Clippers picked him up, and he continued to score well off the bench when on the court, but that was increasingly a problem. Had he ever gotten his head on straight, Q might have been higher on this list. But as it stands, he was a guy who could fill up a scoreboard about as well as he filled up a rap sheet. He retired in 92 with career averages of 14.1 points a night. 17. Thurl Bailey, 1983. Big T spent the 80s playing for the Jazz, becoming an excellent scorer off the bench. He only started 205 of 708 games across his career, but he averaged 14 points and 5.5 rebounds, getting votes for 6th Man of the Year in 86, 88, 89, and 91, as Utah built a contender around Karl Malone and John Stockton. Unfortunately for him, the team traded him away during the 92 season for Tyrone Corbin. Bailey joined the Timberwolves after the deal, and his minutes took a hit. After 3 seasons in Minnesota, he left to play overseas, making the Greek League All-Star team in 94 and winning the Italian League All-Star Game MVP in 97. The Jazz brought him back in 99, but the 37-year-old had lost a step, so he retired after the season. 16. Eric Gordon, 2008. Like several players around this spot, Gordon could always score. He averaged 16 points as a rookie and was dropping 22 a night for the Clippers in 2011. However, he's also had to deal with several injuries and has been at his best as a heater off the bench. Gordon was a star sixth man for the Houston Rockets in 2017 and 2018, winning Sixth Man of the Year in 2017. With career averages of 15.3 points a night and a relatively reliable three-point shot, he might have a case to move higher, but I feel like his numbers are a little inflated from playing on bad teams and those shot-happy Rockets, which kept me from moving him any higher. 15. John Johnson, 1970. JJ made the All-Star team in both of his first two seasons, averaging around 17 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 5 assists a night. That made him the first Cavs player to make the NBA All-Star team. After those first two seasons, he was never able to get back to those heights during his final 10 years in the league. That doesn't mean he was a bad player. In fact, some call him the first point forward from his days with the Seattle Supersonics in the late 70s and early 80s. After all, that team ran a lot of their sets through the swingman on their way to a title in 1979. To put it simply, JJ was more than solid, even if he didn't quite live up to the early bar he set in Cleveland. He retired in 1982 with career averages of 12.9 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 3.8 assists. 14. Greg Monroe, 2010. During his first 5 seasons in Detroit, Monroe was a walking double-double threat who picked up votes for DPOY in 2012. Despite being 6'11", he wasn't really a blocks guy, but he did average more than a steal per game during his career. Monroe left the Pistons in 2016 to sign with Milwaukee. He moved to the bench during his second year with the Bucks, but kept scoring, getting votes for Sixth Man of the Year. After that season, Monroe was shipped around the league several times, playing for 5 different squads over the next 2 years. He spent the 2020 and 2021 seasons playing in Russia and China before coming back to the NBA in 2022. Across 14 games, he played for 4 different teams. That ended his NBA career, but Monroe spent a few more seasons overseas. He has career averages of 13 points, 8.2 boards, and 1.1 steals a night. 13. Harrison Barnes, 2012. Barnes thrived during his early career in Golden State, slowly becoming a double-digit scorer and key member of the team when it won a title in 2015. However, Barnes left the team and signed with the Mavs when Kevin Durant joined the Warriors. After that, he bumped his scoring up to 19 a night. Barnes proved he could pour in buckets, but those Dallas teams weren't very good. In the middle of a 2019 game, he was traded to the Kings. Barnes' numbers came down slightly as Sacramento built around De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, but he was a great third option. In 2025, he was traded to the Spurs, where he's largely continued in his role as a reliable veteran scorer for a very young team. 12. Vinnie Johnson, 1979. The microwave is one of the original heaters off the bench. During his time in Seattle, Detroit, and San Antonio, Johnson only started 187 of 984 games, but he was one of the best in the business at getting hot in a hurry. He was a lethal shooter who played a big part in Detroit winning back-to-back titles in 89 and 90. Johnson nearly won Sixth Man of the Year in 87, but never finished better than runner-up. Still, he was instant offense throughout his career, the perfect complement to Joe Dumars and Isaiah Thomas. 11. Damon Stoudamire, 1995. Mighty Mouse made an immediate impact with the Raptors, winning Rookie of the Year over Jerry Stackhouse, Joe Smith, Kevin Garnett, and a 31-year-old Arvydas Sabonis. He upped his scoring to 20 a night in 97, but demanded a trade after Vice President Isaiah Thomas resigned from the team. Midway through the season, he was traded to Portland, along with the guy we've already talked about, Walt Williams. Those Blazers teams of the late 90s and early aughts were stacked with talent. So his scoring fell, but Stoudamire was still a starting point guard, giving Portland double-digit points, solid assist numbers, and a healthy dose of triples. He spent 8 years in Portland, dealing with a few setbacks. The team decided to shift its focus to youth before the 2006 season, so Mighty Mouse signed with Memphis. By that point, he'd started to slow down, and Stoudamire was out of the NBA after the 2008 season. He was never an all-star, but the former Rookie of the Year averaged 13.4 points, 6.1 assists, and 1.1 steals over his 13-year career. 10. Jamal Murray, 2016. Murray was solid, but not spectacular, off the bench for Denver as a rookie. In 2018, he became the Nuggets starting point guard, and outside of injuries, which there have been quite a few, he hasn't relinquished that role. Since 2019, he's never averaged fewer than 18 points a night, and has consistently given Denver 20 points and 6 assists for the last 3 years. What's more impressive is how he elevates his play in the playoffs. That was at its peak in 2023, when he raised his scoring to 26 a night and helped Nikola Jokic win a title. While he hasn't quite gotten back to that level in the last 2 years, Murray remains one of the very good point guards of this era. He's also only 27 years old, so I wouldn't be surprised if he adds at least one All-Star nod, though the West is stacked with guard talent. Maybe if a guy we'll get to later retires in the next few years, Murray can take his spot. 9. Julius Randle, 2014. It feels weird to have Don Julio this high, but he is a 3-time All-Star and 2-time All-NBA player. His career averages of 19 points, 9.1 rebounds, and 3.8 assists aren't anything to scoff at either. And it's not like they're completely empty stats. While Randle has had to deal with injuries over the years, he's had quite a few solid playoff series when healthy. Is he on his way to having a Hall of Fame career? Probably not, unless something changes very quickly, but Randle has proven to be a solid secondary creator and box score stuffer. He's far from perfect, but if he's your second or third option, you're probably in a pretty good spot. 8. Luol Deng, 2004. Deng was immediately traded to the Chicago Bulls, where he spent the first 10 years of his career. He quickly established himself as a top-tier wing defender, earning votes for DPOY in 08, 11, 12, and 13. Deng was also a consistent scorer, averaging 16 points during his time with the Bulls. He made 2 All-Star teams in 2012 and 2013, and picked up an All-Defensive nod in 2012. Once Derrick Rose joined the party, those Bulls teams were pretty solid. Deng made it to the playoffs in 6 of his 10 seasons in Chicago, though they only made it out of the first round twice. Midway through the 2014 season, Deng was traded to the Cavs. He was solid during his time there, but signed with Miami after the season. After 2 years, Deng went to the Lakers and took more of a backseat role. In 2018, an injury limited him to only 1 game. Deng played in 22 games with the Timberwolves in 2019, before retiring with career averages of 14.8 points, 5.1 rebounds, and 1 steal a night. 7. Richard Hamilton, 1999. Rip had an average rookie season, but doubled his points per game in year 2 and never looked back. He averaged more than 18 points a night from 2001 to 2010, though his best stretch came after he was traded to the Pistons in 2003. There, he partnered with Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, and Tayshaun Prince to turn Detroit into contenders. The team capitalized on their depth and upset the much-favored Lakers to win the 2004 title. Rip finally made his first All-Star team in 06. He'd also get the nod the next 2 years, using his patented mid-range game and ridiculous stamina to demoralize opponents. In 2012, he joined the Bulls and looked like he might win another title until Derrick Rose tore his ACL in the playoffs. Rip retired after the 2013 season with career averages of 17.1 points, 3.1 rebounds, and 3.4 assists. 6. Alvin Robertson, 1984. Robertson had a solid start to his NBA career, but he exploded when he became a starter in year 2. That year, he averaged 17 points, 6.3 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and 3.7 steals, en route to making the All-Star, All-NBA, and All-Defensive teams, and winning the Most Improved Player and Defensive Player of the Year awards. Robertson continued to be a defensive standout throughout his career, making 5 more All-Defensive teams and 3 more All-Star games. He finished in the top 5 for DPOY voting 4 more times, but never got another win. As of 2025, he still holds the record for steals per game over a career at 2.7 a night. In 1989, the Spurs traded him to the Bucks for a package that included Terry Cummings, and Robertson continued to impress on both sides of the ball. He ended the 93 season in Detroit and missed 2 full years with injury before finishing his career in 96 with one last season in Toronto. While he never picked up an NBA title, he did win a gold medal at the 1984 Olympics. 5. Kevin Johnson, 1987. KJ was stuck behind Mark Price to start his career, but then the Cavs sent him to Phoenix midway through his rookie season for a package that included Larry Nance. He bumped his scoring and assists by nearly 5 a night each after the trade, establishing himself as one of the league's best young point guards. The next year, he boosted his averages up to 20.4 points, 12.2 assists, and 1 point steals a night to win Most Improved Player and make the All-NBA team. Over the next 3 years, he continued to average a double-double, making 3 more All-NBA teams and 2 All-Star squads. When Charles Barkley joined the team in 93, KJ missed about half the season due to injury, but was his usual self in the playoffs, helping the team make it to the NBA Finals, where they fell at the hands of Michael Jordan and the Bulls. KJ came back healthy the next season and made his 3rd and final All-Star team and 5th and final All-NBA team as Phoenix went on another deep run. He kept playing well for the Suns until 98, when injuries held him to just 12 starts and 50 total games. KJ averaged fewer than 15 points a night for the first time since his rookie season, and he decided to retire. However, when Jason Kidd came down with an injury ahead of the 2000 playoffs, KJ rejoined the Suns and helped, albeit only slightly, the team win its first playoff series in 5 years. They still lost in the second round, and Johnson retired soon after. He has career averages of 17.9 points, 9.1 assists, and 1.5 steals. 4. Bernard King, 1977. These next 2 might be the tightest rankings on this list. If you want to flip King with the next guy, I wouldn't be too mad at you. After all, King was one of the best scorers of his era. The guy could absolutely put the ball in the hoop, even leading the NBA in scoring in 1985 with 32.9 points a night. Seriously, he averaged 24.2 points and 9.5 rebounds during his rookie season. He was playing pro ball for 16 years and averaged fewer than 20 points in only 5 of those seasons. And 2 of those seasons, he missed completely with injury. Plus, in 1980, he only played in 19 games. King was a 4-time All-Star and 4-time All-NBA player. That said, his biggest blemish is playoff success. He only played in the postseason 5 times over his career, and King's deepest run came in 1980 when the Knicks made it to the second round before losing to 7 to Boston. That said, his back-to-back 50-point games in 1984 are the stuff of legends. It really is unfortunate that he suffered that massive knee injury in 1986. At that point, he was near the height of his powers, and when he came back, he could still score, but those missed seasons hurt his legacy quite a bit. King retired after the 93 season with career averages of 22.5 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 3.3 assists. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2013. 3. Chris Mullin, 1985. The Run TMC Warriors were one of the most fun teams to watch during their era, and Mully played a huge part in that. Coming out of the gate, Mullin averaged 14 a night, but 3 years later, his scoring was all the way up to 26.5. From 89 to 93, he didn't average fewer than 25 points and made 5 All-Star teams and 4 All-NBA squads. And he wasn't just a scorer. Mullin filled the box sheet, averaging around 6 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block a night during that stretch, solidifying himself as a do-everything point guard. He also won a gold medal in 92 as part of the Dream Team. Ahead of the 94 season, Golden State acquired Chris Webber, who constantly fought with head coach Don Nelson. While the team had a good season, Webber quickly left, and Mullin's body started to break down. He played for the Warriors through the '97 season, but by that point, the focal point had moved to Latrell Sprewell. Ahead of the '98 season, Mullen was traded to Indiana. The aging Mully wasn't nearly as good as he'd been, but he helped the Pacers make a few good playoff runs before rejoining the Warriors in 2001. Mullen retired after the season with career averages of 18.2 points, 4.1 rebounds, 3.6 assists, and 1.6 steals. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011. Number 2, Billy Cunningham, 1965. The Kangaroo Kid started his career as the Sixers' sixth man, averaging around 17 points and 7.5 boards during his first 3 years while playing alongside Wilt Chamberlain. In 1967, he helped the team win a title, averaging nearly 20 points a game in the finals. When Wilt left after the 1968 season, Cunningham took over as the face of the franchise. He brought his scoring up to around 25 a night and his rebounds up to 12.5 over his final 4 years in Philly. Cunningham made 4 straight All-Star and All-NBA teams, consistently finishing among the top vote getters for MVP. Around 1969, he was embroiled in some contract controversy that I won't get into here for the sake of time. The important part is that it led to him joining the Carolina Cougars in the ABA for the 1973 season. In his first year in the league, he averaged 24 points, 12 boards, 6.3 assists, and 2.6 steals to win MVP. Cunningham had one more solid season in the ABA before rejoining Philly for 2 more seasons and retiring. Over his 11-year career, Cunningham averaged 21.2 points, 10.4 rebounds, and 4.3 assists. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1986. Number 1, Stephen Curry, 2009. If you know your draft history, this one shouldn't be a surprise. Curry comfortably takes the top spot, and no one is really close. The 11-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA player, 2-time MVP, 2-time scoring champ, 4-time champion, and 1-time Finals MVP is most likely the greatest shooter in NBA history, and certainly the most prolific. His accuracy and skill at creating his own shot from deep have totally changed the game. There aren't too many players on this list, or really in the history of the sport, you can say that about. As of 2025, he is the all-time leader in threes made and attempted per game, and in field goal percentage. His shooting splits are beyond ridiculous, and while he's never been a defensive maven, he's absolutely put in the work to improve on that side of the ball. Look, the rest of the guys in this top 5 really do have an argument to be in the top 100 players in NBA history, but Curry is knocking on the door of the top 10 as he enters the twilight of his career. And that's my ranking of every 7th pick in NBA history. Feel free to tell me how wrong I am in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this one, why don't you go ahead and check out my ranking of every 8th pick as well.